short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're discussing the events taking place in Iran as of March 2026.
Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world.
On February 28, 2026, after weeks of negotiations between the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran, American President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu launched a joint attack on various sites in Iran, which has been occupied by the Islamist regime that seized power following the Islamic Revolution in 1979, and which has chanted death to America and death to Israel ever since. The operation, codenamed Roaring Lion by Israel and Operation Epic Fury by the United States Department of Defense, targeted key officials, military commanders, and facilities. The attack included the assassination of the second Supreme Leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei. In 1979, the Islamic Republic replaced Iran's historical lion and sun flag, or Shira Khorshid, signaling the campaign's objective was nothing less than regime change.
Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people.
It was seismic. Reports described a barrage of Tomahawk missiles, followed by more than 30 bunker buster strikes targeting hardened command sites deep inside Iran. Military compounds, strategic headquarters, high-level meeting locations. Among the targets, the Ministry of Defense, air defense systems, judiciary leadership centers, the IRGC's main headquarters, parliament-linked sites, the state media headquarters, and, notably, the site of the regime's atomic energy organization. Before striking the head of the so-called snake, the Supreme Leader's compound just as Khamenei was meeting with a number of his top officials. Casualties included IRGC Chief Mohammad Pakpour, Army Chief Amir Khatami, Defense Minister General Aziz Nazirzadeh, and Senior Advisor to Ali Khamenei, Ali Shamkhani. And, before long, it was confirmed that Khamenei and several members of his family had perished. However, his son Mojtaba survived, leaving his role in the regime's future highly uncertain. Following the strike, Khamenei's scheduled speech was abruptly canceled, and he was not heard from throughout the day. Speculation intensified over whether he had survived the initial wave, but the White House soon confirmed he was dead. The regime's state TV subsequently admitted this fact early Sunday morning. Celebrations erupted in the streets, while the ruling minority mourned the loss of the 86-year-old who had controlled the Islamic Republic for 37 years. To fill the void, a temporary leadership council was formed featuring the lesser-known Ayatollah Ali Reza Arafi, who immediately found a target on his back as follow-up strikes continued. Day 1 marked the beginning of the most consequential power vacuum in the Islamic Republic's history. By the second day, there was no reprieve or slowdown, as Israel and America relentlessly pursued regime change against a theocracy that kept threatening Trump even after the January 2026 massacre.
پلید رو سگ زرد وحشی یا دو دوره ریاست جمهوریش یا اگر نشد بعدش حتما باید این تقاص بس.
When news broke that the United States had launched targeted strikes against Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps assets, reactions across the world ranged from joy to condemnation. The joy largely came from Iranians inside and outside the country, the condemnation from left-leaning media organizations. It may be strange that so many Iranians, inside and outside the country, were not panicking at the prospect of targeted strikes against the regime's military infrastructure. Some were openly calling for it, and many celebrated with relief and cautious optimism when news broke out. Why would citizens react with relief when foreign forces strike targets inside their own country? To understand that, you have to understand the difference between Iran and the Islamic Republic. Iran versus the regime.
اسلام آمده است که این حرفای نامربوط را از بین ببرد. افراد ملی به درد ما نمیخورند. افراد مسلم به درد ما میخورند.
Iran is one of the world's oldest continuous civilizations, with statehood stretching back thousands of years. When Marxists joined forces with Islamists to overthrow Iran's 2,500-year-old monarchy, the leader of the revolution, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, prioritized Islam over nation. The Islamic Republic has governed for just 47 years, leading to a massive exodus that has created a diaspora of up to 8 million Iranians outside the country. Naturally, those outside are overwhelmingly relieved and ecstatic about the strikes, especially Iranian women, who have paid the single biggest price. But even a majority of over 80% of those inside Iran have grown disillusioned with Khomeini's successor Khamenei embarking on an axis of resistance strategy which siphoned Iranian treasure and blood for the Palestinian cause.
اسلام با ملیت مخالف است. معنی ملیت این است که ما ملت را می‌خوایم، ملیت را می‌خوایم و اسلام را نمی‌خوایم.
For many Iranians, especially younger generations, the regime is not seen as synonymous with the nation. It's viewed as a political system that seized power in 1979 and has ruled through a fusion of theology and state authority under the doctrine of Velayat-e-Faqih. In this framework, dissent is not merely political disagreement, it can be framed as heresy. With growing frustration, the youth are using the strikes to push back, toppling statues dedicated to Khamenei. Thus, when Iranians say they support strikes, they are not saying they want harm to Iran. They want the end of the regime, pressuring the regime's coercive apparatus.
خدا لعنت کنه خمینی رو که سفته در مملکت ما درست که ملت ایران و مملکت ایران و به دین ضربه زدن بر همه مردم واجب است که بلند بشوند و کلک این حکومت خبیث آدمکش رو بکنن خدا لعنت کنه خمینی و خامنه‌ای.
The IRGC is a terrorist organization.
It looks a lot like you're trying to build a bomb. They're going to continue to have problems, not just with us, but with many other countries in the world.
The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is not just a military branch. It is an economic conglomerate, a political force, and a domestic security structure. It oversees foreign operations, missile programs, including devastating hypersonic ones, internal repression, control of key sectors of the economy, and incompetence and negligence.
They're behind every problem in this region. They are the sole source of instability in the entire Middle East, and the world's been paying a price for this for 40-something years.
This is why inside Iran, few are protesting against the strikes. Reform and protests have proven useless. In the women life freedom movement spawning from the brutal murder of Mahsa Amini in 2022, and even more notably during January 2026, which was the biggest killing of a people by its own government, the IRGC and affiliated forces have been accused by human rights groups of lethal crackdowns. For families who have lost loved ones in those protests, the IRGC is not an abstract institution. It is the face of repression, which explains why Iranians are rejoicing at the pain inflicted to their oppressors. And this is why most are relieved when Basij remnants are being picked apart, to ensure Iranians, who come back to the streets unarmed, are not met with the same violence they met in January 2026. During the 12-day war in 2025, when Israel took out over a dozen IRGC senior members, Iranians rejoiced. That explains part of the emotional response. It also explains how much Iranians have not only defected from the IRGC, but covertly work for Mossad. This explains why and how Israel sometimes flexes its dominance. Islamophobia versus Islamism.
Not your country's an Islamic Republic. It's anti-American, anti-Soviet, anti-Israeli, and anti-some Arab countries.
Many Westerners hesitate to criticize the Islamic Republic and Muslims out of fear of appearing Islamophobic. That hesitation is understandable in a society that values tolerance. But Iranians are largely unbothered by that accusation. Why? Because Iranians have lived under political Islamism, since 1979, with tragic consequences: the fall of their currency, power outages, a lack of water despite being blanketed between the Persian Gulf and Caspian Sea. Iranians have seen firsthand how religion can be weaponized into an ideology of control.
Who is your worst enemy, Mr. President?
دشمن اصلی ایران کیست؟
Since Islam conquered Iran in the 7th century, Iranians did not lose their language nor their identity the way many nations from Morocco to Iraq adopted Arabic after conquest. Iranians remained Iranian. Iran, or Land of Aryans, consists of over a dozen ethnic groups: Persians, Azeri, Kurds, Lor, Baluch. Persian, or Farsi, is the language. Unlike the Arab street that dislikes America while their governments coddle it, Iran is the opposite, where the regime called death to America, while its people love the USA. For many critics, the issue is not belief, it is state-enforced ideology. The regime's axis of resistance has also grown into frustration among neighboring states due to the IRGC's tentacles. That the Islamic Republic reacted to the February 28th operations by attacking U.S. bases in Arab states, as well as Arab allies in Bahrain, UAE did not endear them at all. Putting the celebrations in context. For some Iranians, targeted strikes against regime infrastructure are seen not as an attack on the country, but as pressure on the machinery of control, with regime change being the only acceptable goal. While the regime says that it killed only 3,000 Iranians during January, laughable if not tragic that this would be an acceptable figure, countless organizations pegged the number in the tens of thousands. When Khamenei's death was announced, the jubilation was clear, and as such, understandable, for he had given the direct orders, which were orchestrated by senior regime member Ali Larijani, who became the top political figurehead following Khamenei's death. Transition and uncertainty in near term. It's uncomfortable to watch citizens react positively to foreign strikes on their own government, but it's also revealing. It reveals a fracture between state and society that was exacerbated after the January 2026 massacre. This is not about cheering destruction. It reflects the desperation not just of the violence and repression, but frustration and exasperation of how Iran had become a kleptocracy under the Islamic Republic's tenure under Khamenei, whom Reuters estimates had pocketed nearly $100 billion in assets during his reign. Whether outside foreign intervention leads to freedom, instability, or something in between remains uncertain. But when foreigners who did not support intervention said it was up to Iranians to change the regime, and they were met with machine gun fire, then Iranians pleaded for foreign help.
The entire military command is gone as well, and many of them want to surrender into saving their lives. They want immunity. They're calling by the thousands.
Considering that Cyrus the Great freed the Jews and let them return from Babylon to Jerusalem, it is not surprising to see Israel wanting to repay the debt 2,500 years later by helping free Iranians from the death grip of the Islamic regime. The cracks are showing, with members of the IRGC beginning to flee to Afghanistan. And this coming on the heels of growing defections, which Donald Trump reiterated on his second day of the offensive.
I once again urge the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military, police, to lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death.
But one thing is clear. Despite Iranian sentiments, this was not obvious to the left and in Western media, even though Iranians rejoiced and were relieved to the point of renting a plane in Los Angeles to fly a banner thanking the President of the United States. Fear of civil war.
The only one who's to blame is Ali Khamenei, and if that leads to the destruction of this regime, this terrorist, I'm okay with it.
Critics warn of scenarios like Iraq and Libya. Supporters of pressure argue that Iran is different. It has a large, educated population, a deep cultural cohesion, and a strong civil society under strain. The debate inside the Iranian community is complex. It is not a simple pro-war versus anti-war divide. It's a conversation about whether internal change is still possible, or whether the system is too entrenched. What Iranians want is what America was built upon: freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
And I hope that our king, our Shahanshah, will return and rebuild our country, and my country can see better days.